A group of friends were camping in the Al-Qawa Desert near the Geminid meteor shower around 2:30 a.m. One person walked alone up a nearby dune to take photos in near total darkness, with only distant car lights far to the right and the night sky above. From the top of the dune, the desert ahead was completely black. When the phone light briefly turned on, a dark shape appeared very close on the slope. The person panicked and ran back downhill, even leaving their sandals behind. They later searched the area, but found nothing. 2 weeks later, while reviewing photos from that night, one image showed a large, dark shape stretching down from the dune, where no one had been. Reddit user HappySoul6720 posted the image to Reddit. Many commenters argued it was just one of their shadows, but according to the poster, that explanation is impossible. In June of 1978, newlyweds Richard and Judy Wees were out prospecting during their honeymoon when they crossed paths with Ronald Gress in Nevada's remote Black Rock Desert. Tragically, Gress attacked them and even their dog, leaving them where they fell. A week later, another desert dweller, Peter Cashnot, came across the scene. Before he could get help, he too met a deadly fate. Gress lived alone near a hot spring, almost 50 miles from the nearest town. He had a long history of mental illness and violent behavior. Police eventually caught him about 10 days later. He was convicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, where he remained until his death in 2013. Reddit user Maria Rosie 555 was parked near a deserted house known locally for strange activity. She and her friend stayed inside the car with a spirit box. The device began giving disturbing responses to simple questions. Soon after, they heard a tapping sound at the back of the car and recalled seeing a shadow move past the rear. They took a photo to see if anything appeared in the image, and it showed a pair of glowing eyes. From inside the car, they scanned the area with a flashlight from all sides but found nothing. No one was around. Feeling unsafe, they left the area shortly after. A woman was hiking alone from work late one night. The street was quiet. Too quiet. So she took out her phone and began to record. And this happened. A small girl appeared in the middle of the road. She wasn't sure if it was just a child. The girl looked unnaturally pale and kept staring straight at her. And why would a child be alone on the street at night? Terrified, the woman turned and ran, never knowing for sure whether what she saw was real or something paranormal. A group was traveling through a desert when they recorded this video. A massive sandstorm was approaching quickly. Sandstorms can be extremely dangerous. They reduce visibility to almost zero, can make it impossible to navigate, and carry debris that can cause injury or damage vehicles. Being caught in one unprepared can be life-threatening. The video provides no further context. Did they leave on time? Did they wait in the car? What happened next? We don't know. A Reddit user shared a photo taken by her friend while visiting Grafton ghost town in Utah. It was pitch black outside, so they used night mode to capture the image. She believed she was completely alone. The area was silent and there was no visible movement. But when the photo was processed, a detailed human-shaped figure appeared. Night mode records light over several seconds, meaning any movement during that time can appear solid in the final image. Still, the figure remained visible long enough to be captured, and then vanished without making a sound. Had they really been alone? To this day, they don't know how to explain it. While hiking alone in the courthouse wash area of Arches National Park, a man stepped onto what looked like solid ground, but in an instant, it gave way. His legs sank deep into wet sand, tightening around him as he struggled. The more he moved, the worse it became. Within moments, he was trapped, unable to pull himself free. As temperatures dropped and the sun began to set, the situation became dangerous. Spending the night exposed in the desert, cold, wasn't an option. He managed to activate his GPS satellite messenger and sent out an emergency SOS. Search and rescue teams responded quickly, using a drone to locate him in the vast landscape. When they reached him, the sand kept collapsing back into the hole as they dug, making the rescue difficult. After nearly 2 hours, rescuers finally freed him. He was cold, exhausted, but unharmed. Park officials later warned hikers that quicksand can form after moisture builds up in desert washes, and stressed the importance of carrying emergency devices, because sometimes the ground beneath you isn't as solid as it looks. In the middle of the desert, a group of hikers came across this. Lying alone among the stones and dust was what appeared to be a large horned skull. But on closer inspection, the object appeared to be human-made, possibly designed for a ritual or to resemble something demonic. Wisely, the hikers recorded the discovery and left it untouched. Still, it raises the question: what was it used for, and why was it left behind? This photo was captured in Galveston, Texas, in a fairly deserted, marshy part of the West End, and posted by someone on the internet. It's a raw IR game camera photo, taken around 2016 by the poster's neighbour. The image was never publicly shared, only on a private Facebook account, which gave the poster confidence that it was genuine. For years, the poster and their high school friends had been sitting on this photo, unsure of what they were seeing. Even after sharing it online, they still received no answers to this mystery. A Reddit user named Troy shared photos taken during a trip to an old mineshaft about 70 miles from the nearest town. At the time, nothing unusual was noticed. Later, while reviewing the pictures, they noticed a shape in the background. It looked like a human figure standing on a nearby hill. Some viewers thought it resembled a cowboy. Others suggested it could be a rock, a cactus, a bird, or a trick of perspective. No other photos from the same spot were shared. The image remains open to interpretation. Reddit user Weird Old World was walking through the Palpa Desert near Nazca in Peru to film ancient geoglyphs for a YouTube channel when they came across human skulls. One skull had a rope threaded through a hole in its forehead, which felt especially disturbing. As more bones became visible, the area began to resemble an unmarked burial site rather than an empty stretch of desert. What happened here? Let's hope the discovery was reported to the authorities. While driving through the desert using night vision goggles, this Reddit user noticed something unexpected. He was heading home, traveling a few miles along a quiet paved road. The area was dark, isolated, mostly empty. Then, suddenly, he saw a man standing in the middle of the road. The man appeared to be doing karate moves, striking and fighting at something that wasn't there. There were no other people, no vehicles nearby. The driver stopped and watched for several minutes, but the man just kept moving, kicking, punching, and fighting in the empty lane. The driver mentioned he didn't have an SD card in his recorder, so the video quality was poor, but he shared the footage as proof of what he saw. In February 2010, the McStay family suddenly vanished from their home in Fallbrook, California. Joseph McStay, his wife Summer, and their 2 young sons were last seen on February 4th. Inside the house, everything appeared normal. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, and no evidence the family had planned a trip. Food was still in the kitchen. The family dogs were found wandering outside the home days later. At first, investigators were unsure whether the family had left voluntarily or met with foul play. A few days after their disappearance, the McStay family's Isuzu Trooper was discovered abandoned near the US-Mexico border. Soon after, grainy surveillance footage surfaced showing what appeared to be the family of 4 crossing into Mexico. With no clear proof of a crime, the case stalled. For years, theories ranged from voluntary relocation to cartel involvement. The McStay's relatives, however, insisted the family would never have left without telling anyone. Then, nearly 4 years later, the case took a devastating turn. In November 2013, construction workers in the Mojave Desert uncovered 2 shallow graves. Inside were the remains of 4 people. DNA testing confirmed the remains belonged to Joseph, Summer, and their 2 sons. A sledgehammer found near the graves was believed to be the murder weapon. Investigators focused on Chase Merritt, Joseph McStay's business associate and former partner. Evidence presented at trial showed Merritt was struggling financially and had allegedly embezzled money from their business. Prosecutors also presented phone records placing Merritt near the McStay home on the night the family vanished, and surveillance showing him near the desert burial site. In 2019, after a lengthy trial, Chase Merritt was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Merritt has continued to deny responsibility. A man was hiking in the desert when he found something extraordinary. A snake with a single body that split into 2 fully formed heads. Each head moved independently, making the animal unpredictable and difficult to control. This rare condition, called bicephaly, occurs when 2 embryos partially form within one body, the same process that can create conjoined twins in humans. With 2 brains giving different commands, the snake risks tearing itself apart. How would you react seeing this? More than 300 piles of cremated human remains were found scattered in the desert near Searchlight, Nevada. The discovery was made on July 28th, about 1 hour from Las Vegas. Investigators confirmed the ashes were human remains. Many piles contained cable ties and broken urn pieces, items commonly used by funeral homes. None of the remains had identifying details, making it difficult to trace them to families. About 315 sets of ashes were later recovered by Palm mortuaries and placed into individual urns. Authorities believe the remains were illegally dumped by a funeral home. The investigation is ongoing. A Reddit user named Marcelin was hiking in the Hyde Desert when she stumbled upon a very unexpected doorway. It was located in the McInnes Canyons National Conservation Area near Fruita, Colorado, along an easy 3-mile loop trail starting from Devil's Canyon trailhead. The structure was built into the rock, and the inside was plain, resembling a small cave. But why was a doorway ever built there? Back in 1999, Robert Bogucki, an American firefighter, set out alone in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth, Australia's Great Sandy Desert. Before leaving, Bogucki told authorities he planned to cycle across the desert, relying on cache supplies and natural navigation. He expected the journey to last several weeks, but made it clear he was traveling solo by choice. The plan was risky but intentional. But as the weeks passed, concern began to grow. Bogucki failed to check in as expected, and no one had seen him emerge from the desert. That's when the search began. Soon after, investigators made a disturbing discovery. On a remote desert track, they found Bogucki's blue bicycle abandoned. Nearby were his clothes and empty water bottles, all left behind. Even more alarming, footprints led away from the bike, straight into the open desert. That was the moment authorities realized something had gone very wrong. A massive search operation was launched, covering vast stretches of desert by land and air. But the risk to rescuers quickly became extreme. Eventually, the first search was called off due to cost and danger. Many believed the desert had claimed him, but they didn't give up. A second search was launched. This time, search teams found more of his belongings, and something even more chilling. A large help sign spelled out with stones on the desert floor. Against all odds, on day 43, a helicopter crew spotted movement in a rocky gully. It was Robert Bogucki, alive. Severely dehydrated, weakened and injured, but alive. He was rescued and airlifted to safety, ending one of Australia's largest and most astonishing desert search operations. During a hike through the desert, this person took a picture of their friend, capturing her in her full gear. They had been hiking alone for several hours when the photo was taken. Nothing seemed unusual at the time. When they finally reached their destination, they shared the photos with friends and family. That's when someone noticed something they hadn't. In the background of one image, partially hidden behind the bushes, a man appeared to be standing there, watching. They did not remember seeing anyone else on the trail. The area was remote, with no nearby roads or campsites. To this day, no explanation has been given for who the man was, how long he had been there, or what his intentions might have been. Fortunately, the two women were unharmed, but the photo still gives them the chills. A man said he recorded a UFO in the sky. The video shows two small objects far away, holding still above the horizon. They stay in place long enough to rule out fast planes. Then both objects flash at the same time that look like mid-air blasts, but no sound follows, which suggests extreme distance or unknown technology. But after that, nothing remains in the sky, not even debris or smoke.
Right up there, you see it? Yeah, it's above the rock.
The clip ends with no clear answer and no way to confirm what vanished. In 2003, a 6-inch skeleton was found in an abandoned village in Chile's Atacama Desert. It was wrapped in a cloth and placed inside a pouch. The body was small but formed, with teeth and a long skull. It had 10 ribs instead of 12. Its shape led claims that it was alien. In 2012, scientists tested its DNA. The results showed it was a human fetus and connected to the local population. The remains were named Atta. Further study revealed multiple gene mutations linked to bone development. These changes likely caused severe skeletal abnormalities. The mystery shifted from extraterrestrial theory to rare human genetics. In 1960, a quiet stretch of the Arizona desert became the scene of a haunting discovery. A schoolteacher walking near Sand Creek Wash, close to the town of Congress, Arizona, came across the remains of a young girl. No one knew who she was. With no name, no matching missing person report, and few leads to follow, investigators gave her a temporary identity: Little Miss Nobody. For decades, her case became one of Arizona's most heartbreaking mysteries. Despite extensive efforts, investigators were unable to determine who she was. Then, more than 60 years later, advances in forensic science finally reopened the door. In 2022, investigators used modern DNA technology and genetic genealogy to identify the child. Her name was Sharon Lee Gallegos. Sharon was just 4 years old and she was from New Mexico. On July 21, 1960, Sharon was playing in her grandmother's backyard in Alamogordo when she was taken. Witnesses reported seeing her leave with a woman, possibly accompanied by a man, but at the time no clear suspect was identified. 10 days later, on July 31, 1960, Sharon's remains were found in the Arizona desert, more than 500 miles from her hometown. The distance between where she vanished and where she was found only deepened the mystery. While Sharon finally has her name back, justice has not yet followed. Her death remains under investigation and no arrests have been announced. After more than 6 decades, Little Miss Nobody was no longer nobody. But the search for answers continues. Now, if you're enjoying my videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps me creating new stories every week, and it means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching. A Reddit user named PristineServe4584 was exploring an old graveyard in the middle of the Chilean desert, about 200 kilometers from Iquique, when they came across this. They didn't disturb any grave, it was simply lying there. The cemetery contained graves that were more than 100 years old. Confused by the discovery, they posted it to Reddit, unsure why a symbol like this would appear in such a remote place. One commenter explained the land once sat near Colonia Dignidad, a sealed German settlement with a dark and well-documented past. German migrants and sympathizers were present in Chile long before the colony was officially founded, and the symbol was commonly used by Nazi supporters in the early 20th century. Colonia Dignidad later became Villa Bavaria after its leaders fled justice, but the history tied to the land remains unsettling. About 1 year ago, a man living in the high desert of Southern California noticed a figure early in the morning. It was walking beyond his property line, around 5 acres away. The figure appeared unusually large, estimated at 7 to 8 feet tall. Due to the distance, no clear features were visible. It appeared male and moved with a heavy stomping gait. The man went outside to observe and raised his phone. The figure then turned in his direction. He took a photo and went inside to inform his wife. When both returned outside, the figure was seen moving toward the nearby hills. They were confused. What was anyone doing around there in the middle of the desert? While hiking near Truckee, California, this person explored the Donner Tunnels, a popular but deeply unsettling trail. At first glance, it's a beautiful hike, but the atmosphere feels heavy. The tunnels were carved through solid rock in the 1860s to build the first transcontinental railroad. During construction, workers faced brutal conditions, extreme cold, avalanches, and dangerous blasting methods. Many laborers lost their lives while carving these tunnels through the Sierra Nevada. What makes the location even more haunting is what happened nearby just 15 years earlier. In 1846, the Donner Party became trapped in the mountains only a few miles from this very spot. Stranded by early snowfall near what is now Donner Lake, the group endured months of starvation and freezing temperatures. Nearly half of them died before rescue parties could reach the survivors. Today, while hiking through the Donner Tunnels, you're walking through a place shaped by immense human suffering. Deep in the deserts of southern Peru lie the Nazca Lines, massive drawings etched into the earth by the Nazca culture around 2,000 years ago. They depict animals, plants, and geometric shapes that are only fully visible from the air. From the ground, the lines do not form complete images. The Nazca had no known way to see them from above. Some researchers link the lines to religion or astronomy, while others suggest connections to water or rain rituals. Yet none of these ideas fully explain their immense size, perfect accuracy, or how the design stayed aligned over long distances. To this day, both the method and purpose of the Nazca Lines remain a mystery. Deep in Turkmenistan's Karakum Desert lies the Darvaza gas crater. It's a massive pit that has been burning for over 50 years. The fire began in the early 1970s after a gas field collapsed during drilling. Engineers set the gas on fire, expecting it to burn out in a few weeks, but the underground methane supply kept feeding the flames. In November 2013, Canadian explorer George Coronis became the first person to descend into the crater. The higher-risk mission required careful planning and heavy protective gear due to extreme heat and toxic gases. He successfully made it in and out alive. After midnight in 2017, a family was driving along a remote desert road when a bright light appeared at the far end of the pavement. The glow stayed in the same position as their car moved, forcing them to keep driving toward it for nearly 10 minutes. The light neither grew closer nor faded, making its distance impossible to judge and the road ahead feel unsafe. There was no sound and no visible source around it in the darkness. With nothing to explain what they were seeing, the family slowed down and eventually pulled over, while the light remained fixed in front of them. Was it just another vehicle traveling ahead of them? They didn't think so. To them, it felt unnatural. A Reddit user found a spiral notebook laying in the middle of a desert. Inside were college notes, but the last page stood out. It read, "If you see this, you mean a lot to me. You have been a huge part of my life and experiences while in college. You have made most of my college amazing and memorable. You are much appreciated and loved by me. This is just a message for my passwords, electronics, people to contact." Below that was a list of contacts, along with references to passwords and devices. There was also a brief section listing 3 people involved in an incident, written in a noticeably different style. It read, Person 1, Mom of Child Provoking Incident. Person 2, Confronting Mom. Person 3, Other Member of Person 2's Party. Online, many believed it could be a farewell note and urged the finder to contact authorities, and they did. In a follow-up post, the Reddit user explained that police took the notebook as evidence. Later, one of the listed contacts confirmed that the notebook's owner was alive and safe. It turned out to be nothing, but it was a good thing authorities were informed. What if it was something bad? a group of hikers visited the Denver mine in Chipinque, Monterrey, Mexico, an abandoned site tucked deep into the mountains. During their exploration, they took several photos inside the mine, not expecting anything unusual. But while reviewing the images, something stood out. In the background of one photo, a dark, shadowy figure can be seen. The shape appears human, closely resembling a mine worker standing within the tunnel. According to local stories, the Denver mine is believed to be haunted by workers who lost their lives inside the tunnels years ago, victims of accidents during its operation. This has led some to wonder, was this figure simply a trick of light and shadow inside the abandoned mine, or could it be something connected to the mine's tragic past? Whatever the explanation, the Denver mine remains known among locals for strange and unexplained reports. In November 2024, a woman named Kelsey Pittman suddenly went silent. The 33-year-old from North Carolina stopped answering calls. Messages went unread. Days turned into weeks, and her family knew something was wrong. They reported her missing. For months, there were no answers. Then, on February 9th, 2025, nearly 2,300 miles away, a discovery reignited the case. Deputies in Inyo County, California, were called to investigate an abandoned vehicle near the edge of the desert, close to Slab City, an isolated off-grid community bordering Death Valley National Park. The car was a 2009 Chevrolet HHR. It was registered to Kelsey Pittman. The vehicle was intact, no signs of a struggle, no note, no indication of where she had gone next. Search teams moved in quickly. Drones scanned the desert from above. Search and rescue crews combed the ground. Despite days of searching, not a trace of Kelsey was found. Months passed. Then, in July 2025, the story took an unexpected turn. Authorities announced that Kelsey Pittman had been found alive, not in California, but in Colorado, 3 states away. Officials released very few details, citing privacy concerns. Where she had been, how she survived, why her car was left behind, none of it was explained. The case was officially closed, but the questions remain. What happened during those missing months is known only to her. But one thing matters most. She was found alive. A Tesla driver was waiting in a small desert town at night when his car suddenly began sensing people nearby, even though no one was outside. But then, he saw this. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at him from the darkness, but he couldn't make out what it was. The car's sensors showed a person standing exactly where the glowing eyes were coming from. Unsure of what it was, he didn't stay much longer. Other Tesla drivers have reported similar moments. Some have seen figures appear in parking garages. Others found Sentry Mode recordings triggered between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. with no visible movement. In some cases, the cameras captured brief flashes, but no people or animals. The incident left several owners deeply unsettled. In May 2025, what was meant to be a simple camping trip turned into a tragedy. 2 Arizona high school students, 18-year-old Pandora Kjolsrud and 17-year-old Evan Clark, both students at Arcadia High School, set out for a day trip to the Mount Ord area of the Tonto National Forest. They left on May 25, 2025, planning to return the next day, but they never came back. After the teens were reported missing, a search was launched. On May 27, 2024, their bodies were discovered near a campsite in the remote Mount Ord area. The scene immediately raised serious concerns, and investigators began working to piece together what had happened during those missing days. Evidence collected from the area, including DNA, eventually led authorities to 31-year-old Thomas Brown. Investigators say his DNA was linked not only to the victims, but also to their vehicle and items found nearby. Brown was arrested and now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder. He is currently being held on a $2 million cash-only bond as the case moves forward. What began as a routine outdoor trip ended in a devastating loss. During a hike on one of Colorado's Fortiniers, a Reddit user took this photo. Nothing unusual was noticed at the location at the time. Later, while driving away, they noticed something in the photo. A strange shape appeared in the clouds on the right side of the mountain. It looked like a face. The image was shared online. Most viewers said it was just a natural cloud formation. Some mentioned pareidolia, where the brain sees familiar shapes in random patterns. It was probably just a coincidence. In the Mojave Desert near Baker, California, stands a mysterious welded iron structure. It is 8 feet long and shaped like an hourglass with both ends open. The structure is bolted to 2 large boulders on a rocky slope. No records identify who built it or why it was placed there. An archived webpage from 2002 confirms it existed by the mid-1980s, but the dry desert climate makes its age difficult to measure. Since the structure has no markings, tools, or signs of use, it remains in the same location today without explanation. A family was hiking through the Arizona desert, taking photos of the landscape as they went. At one point, one of them posed for a photo among the red rocks beneath a clear blue sky. The picture looked perfect, and they continued their hike without thinking twice. Later that day, after returning home, they shared the photos with friends and family. That's when someone noticed something they hadn't. Far in the background, partially hidden by rocks and bushes, something appeared to be lying on the ground. The shape looked disturbingly human, possibly wearing a green shirt. At first, they assumed it was bad lighting or a strange angle, but the longer they looked, the harder it became to dismiss. That night, no one slept well. No further updates were ever shared, and no related news reports could be found. So for now, all that remains is the image, and the hope that whatever was seen that day turned out to be nothing serious. On the morning of June 23, 2021, Daniel Robinson, a 24-year-old geologist, arrived at a remote worksite in Buckeye, Arizona. It was around 9 a.m. Daniel was working for Matrix New World, assigned to a Weber Water Resources project near Cactus Road and Sun Valley Parkway, an isolated stretch of desert far from neighborhoods or heavy traffic. According to a Weber employee, Daniel left the worksite that morning and never returned. At first, it didn't immediately raise alarms, but as hours turned into days with no contact, concern grew. Daniel's father, David Robinson, reported him missing. For weeks, search teams combed the Arizona desert. Then, on July 19, 2021, nearly a month after Daniel vanished, a shocking discovery was made. Daniel's Jeep Renegade was found overturned in a ravine, roughly 3 miles from the worksite. The vehicle showed signs of a serious crash. Nearby, investigators found Daniel's clothes and personal belongings scattered around the scene. But Daniel himself was nowhere to be found. Later, a private investigator stated that data suggested the crash occurred around 1 p.m. on the day Daniel disappeared, hours after he was last seen. Search efforts continued for months, led tirelessly by Daniel's father. In 2023, the Buckeye Police Department released their full case file to the public, but even with thousands of pages of reports, data, and analysis, no definitive answers emerged. To this day, Daniel Robinson has never been found. And if anyone watching might know something, even the smallest detail, it could matter. Sometimes all it takes is one tip for the truth to finally come to light. This wondrous meteor crater lies in northern Arizona. It measures nearly 1 mile across and drops more than 500 feet deep. For decades, scientists believed it was formed by volcanic forces. That view changed in the 1960s when research confirmed the crater was created by an asteroid impact around 50,000 years ago. At the time of impact, large prehistoric animals roamed the region. The collision released an estimated 10 megatons of energy, the equivalent of more than 20 million tons of TNT. The blast instantly vaporized the asteroid, generated temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, and sent shockwaves powerful enough to flatten everything within miles. It became the first location on Earth where an impact from outer space was scientifically confirmed. In October 2003, Brandon Rumbaugh and Lisa Gieri left Scottsdale, Arizona for an overnight camping trip near Bumblebee Road to celebrate their 1-year anniversary, planning to return the next morning. When they didn't show up, friends and family went searching, and on October 18th, they found the couple dead together in the bed of a borrowed pickup truck, still in their sleeping bags. Both had been shot multiple times with a .25 caliber handgun, and the gun was never recovered. Nearby, investigators found a broken disposable camera with a few developed photos, including images of the couple and one mysterious shot of an interior light fixture that hasn't been linked to a location. No suspect has ever been identified, and the case remains an open and unsolved investigation, with law enforcement still hoping for clues to bring justice to this tragic mystery. In 2011, a young couple set out on what was supposed to be a simple 3-day camping trip in the vast Utah desert. Sarah and Andrew packed light but planned carefully. Maps, water, basic gear, and an old SUV to carry them deep into the quiet backcountry. But when 3 days passed and they had not returned, concern quickly turned into alarm. Their family reported them missing, and search efforts began almost immediately. Not long after, their vehicle was discovered, parked alone on a sandblasted desert road. The doors were unlocked, the keys were still inside. There were no clear footprints, no supplies scattered nearby, and no indication of which direction they had gone. Search teams combed the surrounding area, but there was no sign of Sarah, no sign of Andrew. Years passed with no answers, until 2019. That year, a group exploring a long-abandoned mine near the area where the couple had vanished made a chilling discovery. Deep inside a narrow shaft, in a dark chamber sealed by fallen rock from the inside, they found human remains near a wall. How did they end up there, and why had they entered the mine? Those questions have never been fully answered. Somewhere deep in the desert of South Las Vegas, someone came across a truly unsettling sight. In the middle of nowhere stood an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese animatronic, completely alone. The area is mostly empty and is occasionally used for shooting practice. The animatronic appears damaged and heavily weathered, suggesting it had been left there for a long time. No confirmed details explain how or why it ended up there, but it definitely gives off some seriously creepy vibes. A hiker was walking through Deer Creek Canyon when he almost stepped on a rattlesnake lying on the trail, mistaking it for a piece of rope. The snake was resting in the open as the sun came out, but the hiker noticed it just in time. The group changed their path and avoided the animal, continuing the hike safely with no injuries. Always watch your steps. On February 9th, 2026, authorities responded to a disturbing discovery in the desert near Barstow, California. According to the San Bernardino County Sheriff Coroner's Department, a caller reported finding what appeared to be a human skull along Fossil Bed Road, a remote dirt road in the area. Deputies arrived at the scene and confirmed the remains were human. The case was immediately turned over to the Sheriff's Specialized Investigations Division Homicide Detail. Detectives and crime scene investigators conducted an extensive search of the surrounding area. During that search, they recovered multiple bones and fragments, all believed to belong to one individual. At this time, the identity of the person remains unknown. Authorities have stated that DNA analysis is underway in an effort to determine who the remains belong to. Officials have not yet confirmed how long the remains had been at the location, whether foul play is suspected, or if there are any known persons of interest. The investigation remains ongoing. Anyone with information related to the discovery is encouraged to contact the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. As more details become available, updates are expected. The Black Crack is a deep fissure in Canyonlands National Park, Utah. It runs along the White Rim Trail and drops about 65 feet. Many hikers like to jump over it for fun, but imagine one misstep. The crack formed from erosion and ground movement that slowly split the sandstone over time. It is narrow, dark, and stretches across the trail. The Black Crack is known mainly as a geological feature and a hazard on one of the park's toughest routes, access is controlled and permits are required. Would you jump over it, or maybe peek inside? In the deserts of Namibia, people began noticing strange circles in the ground, perfectly round patches where no grass would grow. At first they thought nothing of it, but more circles kept appearing, scattered across the landscape, sometimes where grass had been growing just days before. There were no footprints around them, no signs that anything had disturbed the soil. The land inside the circles simply died and never recovered. Locals started to wonder what could cause something so precise, so silent. Whatever it was didn't leave evidence. Some believe the circles may be caused by plants and soil competing for scarce water in the desert, possibly influenced by termites, creating these eerie natural patterns over time. But no one truly knows for sure. Reddit user AstroByteX posted a photo taken by his girlfriend's brother, showing something unusual in the desert. The brother and his friends were exploring a remote area of California, deep within the empty stretches of the Mojave Desert, when they found something strange. The object appeared smooth, pale, and almost organic in shape. It didn't look like ordinary rock, metal, or debris. For some reason, they took only one photo. Planning to return later with tools, they left it where it lay in the sand. But when they came back, it was gone. There was no sign that anything had ever been there. Only a printed photograph remained. A hiker known online as Reddit user Sensei of Sensi shared a short video after finding something unusual during a hike in Virginia. The footage shows a pictograph painted on exposed rock, a simple figure that many viewers online joked looked like an alien with a small body and a large head. But one commenter had answers. It resembled the kind of ancient rock art known from the Paint Lick Mountain Pictograph archaeological site in Tazewell County, Virginia, where Native Americans once applied red pigment to cliff faces to create symbolic images of humans, animals, and abstract forms. These pictographs date back long before European settlement and are rare examples of rock art in the region. The exact meaning of the painting is unknown, which has led some people to suggest that ancient people were drawing aliens. A Reddit user was hiking through a remote stretch of desert with his wife when they came across something unexpected: an old, abandoned truck sitting alone among the rocks. A serial number suggested it dated back to the 1930s or 1940s, possibly an old Dodge. They took a few photos, briefly talked about how it might have ended up there, and then continued on their hike. At the time, nothing felt out of place, but later they realized they had missed something disturbing. In one of the images, partially hidden behind a rock, a man could be seen peeking out, watching them. They shared that they hadn't noticed anyone else in the area and truly believed they were completely alone. That detail changed everything. If it was just another hiker, why didn't he say anything? Why stay hidden? And why appear to be watching them instead of simply passing by? The couple made it out of the desert unharmed, but the unease lingered. To this day, they still don't know who that man was or what his intentions might have been. A man was camping alone in the desert. Late at night, he suddenly heard a sound outside his tent. Uneasy, he turned on a light. That's when a dark figure appeared at the entrance of his tent. Its shape looked human, but the details were unclear in the darkness. And then, the clip ends. The person filming later wondered if it could have been a jinn. Could it really have been something supernatural, or was it just another person, part of a hoax? There's no clear evidence confirming what it was. In 1984, NASA and the FAA remotely flew a Boeing 720 into the Mojave Desert to test crash survival. The plane carried 113 crash dummies and 76,000 pounds of test fuel, and after 4 years of preparation, it took off on December 1st. During the final descent, the aircraft drifted off course and passed a point where it could no longer abort. It hit the runway at full power, struck steel posts, and an engine ruptured, sending burning fuel into the cabin. A fire burned for over 1 hour. Still, about 25% of the occupants were judged likely to survive, leading to new safety rules. In 1928, a young married couple set out to conquer one of the most dangerous rivers in America. Their names were Glenn and Bessie Hyde. They were newlyweds, adventurous, ambitious, and determined to make history. Their goal? To become the first married couple to run the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, and possibly set a speed record in the process. But there was one problem. Glenn had river experience. Bessie did not. She was just 22 years old, and had never navigated white water before. Still, in October 1928, they launched their heavy 20-foot wooden scow into the Colorado River and began the dangerous journey downstream. By mid-November, they had made impressive progress. On November 18th, they were seen below Hermit Rapid after hiking up the south rim to resupply. Witnesses later said they seemed confident, even optimistic. Then they pushed off again. That would be the last confirmed sighting of them alive. They never reached Needles, California, their final destination. Weeks later, on December 19th, a search party found their boat near River Mile 237. It was upright, undamaged, fully stocked with food and supplies. Nothing looked disturbed. It was as if they had simply stepped away and never returned. A camera recovered from the boat revealed their final developed photograph, taken near River Mile 165. Notes left behind indicated they had successfully passed several major rapids, including 231 Mile Rapid, placing them near Mile 232, one of the more treacherous stretches of river. Historians believe their scow may have struck submerged rocks in that area. The theory suggests they could have climbed out onto the rocks to free the boat and were then swept away by the powerful current. The Colorado River in the Grand Canyon is unforgiving. If they entered the water without life jackets, survival would have been unlikely. But here's what makes this case linger nearly a century later. Their bodies were never found. Not a trace. Over the decades, rumors have surfaced. Some claimed Glenn may have harmed Bessie. Others suggested they abandoned the trip intentionally. One woman later even claimed to be Bessie under a new identity, though this was never proven. Still, no solid evidence supports those theories. The most accepted explanation remains tragic but simple. An accident in one of the most dangerous river systems in North America. Nearly 100 years later, the fate of Glenn and Bessie Hyde remains one of the Grand Canyon's most haunting mysteries. In 1953, the United States government built a fake town in the Nevada desert with mannequins placed inside real houses to represent families. The project, called Operation Doorstep, tested how homes, cars, and people would react to a nuclear blast. The houses were furnished, and mannequins were set in living rooms and at tables to mimic daily life, giving an oddly terrifying look. A nuclear weapon was then detonated near the town, sending a shockwave through the area. Buildings were damaged, windows broke, and the mannequins stayed in place during the test. The mannequins, along with the clothes they were wearing, had been provided by J.C. Penney. After the detonation, debris from the destroyed site was cleared, and mannequins were removed and later displayed in a downtown Las Vegas J.C. Penney store. While camping deep in the California desert, this woman came across a strange and unexpected sight. A carefully constructed mound sitting far from any towns, roads, or marked trails. At first glance, it felt unsettling. The mound was shaped like a keyhole, with angel statues placed around it and no sign explaining its purpose. Very little information was available at the site, which led to speculation. Some wondered if it could be an ancient burial site. Others suggested it might be a forgotten Cold War structure. But after digging deeper, a more grounded explanation emerged. According to information shared by a BLM archaeologist who manages the area, the mound was most likely built by the owner of the Center of the World in Felicity, California. It was created as a memorial in honor of his wife. On November 4th, 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered a buried step in the Valley of Kings near Luxor. He had spent years searching for the lost tomb of Tutankhamun. The excavation revealed a sealed doorway bearing intact royal seals. When Carter opened it in 1923, he found one of the only royal tombs never looted. Inside were more than 5,000 artifacts, and at the centre, the king's mummy lay protected within 9 nested coffins beneath a gold mask, untouched for millennia. Soon after the opening, deaths began to follow. Carter's canary was killed by a cobra, a symbol of royal protection. His patron, Lord Carnarvon, died weeks later from blood poisoning after an infected mosquito bite. When Lord Carnarvon died, the electric lights in Cairo reportedly went out. 8 others connected to the tomb, including a radiologist who examined the mummy, also died in the following years. Though no clear curse was written inside Tutankhamun's tomb, ancient Egyptian burials often carried warnings meant to protect the dead. Some believe sealed bacteria or toxic mold may explain the deaths. Others believe it's Tutankhamun's curse. Whether it's a curse or not, death seemed to follow those who entered. This photo was captured in the middle of the Wadi el-Hatin desert in Egypt, and it shows something that feels almost impossible. A whale skeleton lying exposed in the middle of the desert. The site is known as the Valley of the Whales, a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site. At first glance it doesn't make sense, but these fossils tell a story that stretches back over 41 million years. Long before sand dunes covered this land, the entire region was once a shallow ocean. Over millions of years, tectonic plate movement slowly lifted the seabed above sea level. Sand and sediment buried the skeletons, preserving them in place. And much later, erosion carved through the rock, revealing the remains once again beneath the open desert sky. What looks unbelievable is actually a reminder of just how much the Earth can change over time. And for more desert encounters, let's watch this video together.